What's up, man? Want to give this a shot? You want to give this a shot or yeah? All right, cool. Let's get started. So 2 very easy questions to see if you're smarter than a 5th grader. All right, so we'll start with the first one here. So I have 3 box trucks, and they're all on a level surface. They're all completely sealed, and they all have an apple hanging from a string. The only difference between these 3 box trucks is that one is at rest, one is accelerating forward, and one is accelerating in reverse. So out of these 3, which one is at rest?
One accelerating
forward, one is accelerating in reverse, and one is at rest. B's at rest? Yeah, you got it. How did you know that?
Straight down.
I'm sorry?
It's straight down.
Straight down, yeah. It's remaining vertical, you could say, yeah. Which one's accelerating forward?
Yeah.
How do you know A is accelerating
When
forward?
you're going forward, everything stays still.
Yes.
And then the car's moving, Apple goes back because it's stationary.
Yes, it's stationary, so it's being left behind. So it appears to swing back, you know, due to inertia. You know, yeah, you got it. Pretty good. So the second one, very similar, but instead of an apple, there's a helium balloon. So out of these 3, which one is at rest?
The reverse. B is still at rest. C is
accelerating forward,
and A is the one at rest.
So you're saying C is accelerating forward? Yeah. How do you know that?
Density of helium is less than the density of air.
Yes, you got it. So when the air is being pushed forward, the air is able to push the helium in the same direction of the applied force. Yeah, because air, yeah, you're actually one of the first ones to actually get this one right. Yeah, most people don't know this. But here, look, I recreated this experiment inside of a cargo van. So a real life experiment. And I want to see if you could tell, I mean, based on your knowledge, you're definitely going to get this. But there's a helium balloon and an apple inside of a cargo van. Did it accelerate to the right or did it accelerate to the left here?
It is accelerating to our right.
Yes, exactly, because you're always going to get displacement when you have acceleration. You know, a helium balloon will always get pushed in the direction that the air is also being pushed, you know. And I can demonstrate that here. So that's what buoyancy is. So this is a buoyant object. So you could use different states of matter as well. Water is more dense than this ball. So if I accelerate, for example, in that direction, what direction will the ball go? It goes as it follows the direction of the force. Yeah, because that's what buoyancy is. It's a chain reaction of a force. So one last question before you go. If I have a helium balloon on Earth here and I release it, what direction does it go? Yes. So in this scenario, the truck generated the force to push the air, and then the air was able to push the helium. In other words, push it along with it. What's generating the force here on Earth to be able to push the air up, to be able to push up the helium?
Would it be denser?
Yeah, the air is dense, so that's one of the reasons why air were able to push helium, but you also need a force. Yeah, yes, exactly. So the normal force of the Earth. So it's an upwards push of the Earth. So that force can actually be measured and detected. You know, buoyancy shows us that there's an upwards force of the Earth. So I don't know if you knew, gravity as a pulling force has actually never been detected or measured, and that's why it's just a theory. So a pulling force of gravity is just a theory, because in reality, the only force of the Earth that exists is an upwards push. So the force of the Earth is a push, not a pull. And buoyancy shows us that. So right now the air is being compressed, it's being pushed up, and that's why helium balloons rise, because the air is more dense and is able to push it up because the air is also being pushed up. So the Earth itself right now is pushing up against you, it's not pulling you down by this magical force. So I don't know if you knew that gravity is just a theory, right? So the real reason why I'm doing this, you believe the Earth is a ball, right?
Yeah.
So if we could prove that gravity is not a pulling force of the Earth and it's actually a pushing force of the Earth, so the Earth is not pulling you down, it's actually pushing up against you right now, so it's literally moving up. So if we could prove that the Earth is pushing and not pulling, you understand that on a ball, up is relative, right? So if you're standing here, up is this way, but if you're standing down here, up is in the opposite direction, right? So if we could prove that the Earth is pushing up and not pulling you down, how can the Earth push up, in other words, move up in every direction at the same time if it was a ball? How can the Earth push up?
Equal forces, like dispersion, like when you fill up a balloon.
Yeah, it expands.
Yeah.
So you will have to believe the Earth is expanding then. Do you believe the Earth is expanding right now? By the second?
I mean, to be fair, our core is liquid.
Sure.
And the liquid generates heat. Not by much, but probably like very small, like volumes.
Okay, so here's the thing. In order for people to believe the Earth is a ball, they first have to believe in gravity being a pulling force of the Earth. Because if we could prove that it's the other way around and the Earth is actually pushing up instead, then that wouldn't work from a globe Earth model, because again, it would just have to be expanding to be able to push up equally in every direction. So the upwards push of the Earth debunks the heliocentric model, debunks the globe Earth, because again, you require a pulling force in order for people to actually believe that the Earth is a ball. Because that explains how we stick to a ball, that explains how water sticks to a spinning ball as well. But in reality, that pulling force doesn't exist, and that's why it's just a theory. So the real force, again, like you said, is the normal force, which is an upwards push of the Earth. So the Earth is actually just an extended level plane, and it's pushing up only in one direction. So everybody's up is the same. So everybody's on the same level on Earth. So China is not underneath us, it's just across the way. Australia, same thing, it's just across the way. So the oceans are not bending around a ball, they're just like giant lakes, and everything is across the way. So the Earth, again, is a level plane that's just moving up in one direction. Because the Earth couldn't move in 360 degrees at the same time. That wouldn't make any sense, would it?
I mean, well, then how would there be time?
How would there be what? Time zones.
Yeah.
Yes, so the time zones are part of the sun's motion. So whenever the sun's right above you, that's noon for us. But for somebody that's further away, the sun's not above them. So it's like 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. depending if it's past them or not. So the time zones are just calculated based on the motion of the sun above us. So that's what time zones are. It's just calculated by the motion of the sun. That doesn't improve the shape of the Earth. So if I was to ask you respectfully, why do you believe the Earth is a ball?
We have when you go into a plane where
Yes.
you can see the horizon. Alongside that, there have been experiments done like across distance
Yes.
greater than like I forgot how much it was, but it was definitely more than 100. I think 1,000 kilometers. They
Okay.
placed boards and a single narrow like slit just big enough for a laser to go past through.
Yes.
And
Laser experiment over water, would you say?
I don't know if it was over water, but it was over more than 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And if it was perfectly level, they would have been able to shine the light, and it would hit the last one too.
Yes.
It stopped.
Yes.
In between, meaning that there was curvature.
You want to know why it stopped in reality? So, what happens if I shine a laser through water? Will that laser go straight?
It would
Diffract. Exactly. So you know the atmosphere is the fluid, right? It's like moisture in the air, for example. So if you shine a laser through the air, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get refraction as well. Especially the longer distance you shine the laser through, the more refraction there's going to be, because obviously the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker the further you go through it. So that will be a faulty experiment. A real experiment to measure for the Earth's curvature, it's very easy. Do you know the radius of the Earth that they tell us?
the radius.
The radius, so the distance around.
I don't know circumference.
Okay, so the circumference is 24,901 miles, but the radius is 3,959 miles. So we can get these using pi, the formula pi, to be able to calculate for the circumference when we are giving the radius. So this is the radius of the Earth, allegedly. So based on the radius and using a simple calculation like the Pythagorean theorem, h squared plus b squared equals c squared, we can calculate for how much curvature there should be every mile. So it turns out there should be 8 inches per mile squared, and this is a formula based on the radius. So what that means, in the first mile there should be an 8-inch drop, second mile 32 inches, and by the third mile there should be a 6-foot measurable curvature. So how do we measure for that curve, right? Lasers is a faulty experiment, but there is a way we could do it, like a legit measurement. So if we went to a giant lake that was 3 miles across, for example, filled with water, and we build a level structure over that body of water, in other words, a perfectly level horizontal structure, the physics of water, when the water is containing at rest on that lake, it's going to show that it's going to be parallel to anything above it that's horizontal, because the physics of water, when containing at rest, the surface always forms an equal surface, which is level, which is horizontal. They're trying to tell us that the surface of water bends 6 feet in 3 miles. So if we went to a giant lake that was 3 miles across, they're telling us that the difference in height between the starting point and the end point is going to be 6 feet. So they're telling us the surface of water on a lake, it's bending and maintaining that bend, which is a physical impossibility for water to do that. You know, water has properties. And again, one of those properties is that water will always take the shape of the container, and the surface will always equalize and form a horizontal. So a lake, for example, is like a crater. The water fills the container, but the surface always equalizes.
If you have a liquid that's like, if you have a liquid that can't like attract anything that isn't the same, like if you have something hydrophobic instead of like water, would that do the same thing, or would it not?
You gotta give me an example, like hydrophobic. What do you mean?
Say you have like a perfect, like you have a liquid that only binds to itself and not.
So like a magnetic liquid is what you're saying.
Similar, but it wouldn't bind to the dirt or concrete around it either. Like, kind of like what's that thing called? You know those.
It wouldn't be water, would it then?
It wouldn't be water.
Okay, well, we're talking about water because the oceans are filled with water. So the oceans, this experiment shows that the oceans are physically impossible for them to be bending. So the oceans, again, have you heard of the term sea level?
Sea level.
So sea meaning ocean, level meaning horizontal. So the oceans are horizontal, and that's where the term sea level comes from. You know, we're being told that, oh no, the oceans are bending, but at a much larger scale that we can't perceive or see or measure or anything. That's just imagination now. We're going into imagination land to try and explain away a globe Earth which doesn't exist physically here in reality. The globe Earth only exists through a TV screen, so through CGI images or CGI videos. Nobody has ever seen, measured, or witnessed the curvature of the Earth because it doesn't exist. Yeah, so this is the number one proof. Again, the fact that gravity is a push of the Earth, not a pull, that's the number one proof that debunks the globe. The second proof that debunks the globe is the physics of water, how water behaves when contained and at rest. You know, that debunks the whole heliocentric model. You know, these are two practical examples that any of us could test and measure every day. You know, and basically, so if I was like, other than, what did you say proved to you the globe was? The horizon, right, on an airplane? So I don't know if you knew, we do have a limit to how far we can see. So we do have visual acuity that has a limit. So the horizon is simply that, the limit of perspective. It's our vision, is our limit of our field of view around us. So that's how far we can see. So when something goes over the horizon, it's not going over the horizon per se, it's simply going out of perspective. So that's what's happening. So again, a physical horizon doesn't exist. Horizons are apparent. Because if you elevate right now, for example, and you have a horizon in front of you, you increase the distance of that horizon because you're increasing your angle of view. So you're simply increasing your radius of view. You're not seeing over a curve. You know, again, that curvature, if it was there, for example, we should be able to physically measure it. But it's just not there. You know?
That would have to account from, I'm just saying, my bad.
Sure.
Like,
That's what I'm hearing.
That would have to account for the fact that the Earth is a perfect sphere, though, right?
Well, yeah, they do tell us it's an oblate spheroid, right? They say that it's not a perfect sphere. They say it's like pear-shaped, right? Yeah. But even if that was the case, it's still 360 degrees around. So even if there was less curvature in some areas, there should be more curvature in other areas to be able to come back around and make 360 degrees. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so if there's less curvature in one area, there has to be more curvature to basically compensate to be able to come back around to make a circle 360 degrees. So.
Which would be close to the equator, right?
Yeah, I would say. But point being is that there is zero curvature, you know, regardless. It doesn't matter what. They could say the Earth is 1,000,000 miles in circumference. There still has to be curvature every mile, and every mile has to increase. So again, the globe Earth is a physical impossibility. That's what it comes down to. So let me ask you this: you think it's possible that we have been lied to about the nature of the Earth, or are you 100% convinced that it is a ball?
I wouldn't see why they lied about that.
Okay, I would say the motive is a different discussion than the actual facts that contradict the globe. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The motive is something different. You know, obviously, I don't know why they would be lying. So, you know, I would say to control the people, to put them in a state of mind where they don't know where they're at and they're just looking for answers from someone else. So it's about control, in my opinion. It's like a cheap shot on our common sense. But again, that's a completely different subject, in my opinion. So, yeah. So again, when it comes to the shape of the Earth, again, is there anything else that convinces you 100% that it is a globe? Or...
Sorry, like there's what's it called? If all other astronomical bodies, especially
Yes.
key one, black holes.
Black holes.
Black holes, we can prove that they're circular because of the way the light refracts around it, right?
Right.
Why would Earth be any different?
Okay, before we talk about black holes, you're saying that we proved that black holes are circular, right? Let me ask you, how did you prove that black holes exist, first of all?
Me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
I did not.
So you're taking it on faith that someone else did discover.
I mean, reading the research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because somebody could read the Bible and tell me that they proved something from the Bible, but just reading something from the Bible or from a book doesn't actually prove it, right? So you reading something from astronomy about outer space, for example, that you can't prove yourself is no different, in my opinion, than somebody reading a text from a religious book. Because put it this way, the scientific method is based on practicality. So it's based on measuring, testing, repeating, right? And anybody should be able to do it. That's the scientific method. When it comes to things about outer space, black holes, all of that stuff, that's not science because we can't test it for ourselves. We can't recreate it, the conditions, we can't. So it becomes pseudoscience. So everything about outer space, in my opinion, that we're being told because we cannot test it for ourselves, it just becomes a religion. It's just pseudoscience. So again, all of those stories about outer space, black holes, other planets, all of that, in my opinion, are just stories to reinforce the globe Earth model. Because the globe Earth model physically doesn't have anything, when it comes to practicality. That's why they have to talk about stories about outer space to reinforce the model, because that's all it is. The globe Earth is just a model. It's not reality. So again, anything about outer space is just CGI. If you go, you should take a look again. Anything that they show us about outer space is just cartoons, literally just CGI. I'm not even playing.
Yeah, speaking of, wait, can I show you some
Sure.
photos I took of this?
Sure.
Okay, my bad. I have a telescope.
Oh, I would love to see it. Yeah.
My bad. I mean,
Sure, because I have images of the stars too.
yeah.
Here, I see they look similar to this. But yeah, these are using
These are bad. My bad. Never mind. Okay, but yeah, I took this one. It's of the Penguin Nebula.
And it was your personal telescope?
My personal telescope.
Okay.
And I forgot which I think this is what's it called? The Pleiades cluster. Which
Okay.
I think it's Pleiades. I don't remember. It's 700.
But here's the thing. This is an 83 times zoom, optical zoom camera. And this is what happens when you zoom into the stars individually. They literally look like they're rippling in water and they change colors. So nobody actually knows what these stars are. And by my opinion, they're not trillions and trillions of miles away. They're really close, in my opinion. They're reflecting, we might have some kind of ceiling, and the stars are probably reflecting off of that. And I don't know what's generating them, but they're definitely not terra firma. They're not other Earth-like planets, for sure. So these are the planets. So this is what NASA shows us, a CGI image of Mars, but in reality, this is what it looks like through a microscope. Through a telescope. So it's just a light that, again, nobody has ever been to them, or nobody knows what they are in reality. So again, talking about the lights in the sky, again, is just a red herring when it comes to the shape of the Earth. It's just stories that are made up to reinforce the globe Earth model. Because nobody knows what they are, but again, looking at the sky tells us nothing about the physical dimensions of the Earth we're standing. Because we're standing on the Earth. We can literally physically measure the Earth right here, right now. We cannot measure the sky because we can't go there. They say they do, but we can't verify that. That's where it becomes pseudoscience and, like I said, a religion, where it just becomes faith-based. You just have to believe these astronauts, right? In my opinion, astronauts are just priests, because they can only preach about what they're saying. They can't demonstrate it or prove it physically, So again, the heliocentric model is the biggest religion on Earth, followed by Christianity, in my opinion. Because even Christians, all Christians, Muslims, most of them believe the Earth is a ball by default. That's the biggest lie on Earth, in my opinion. It's what we're standing on. Believing we're somewhere we're not.
Do you mean heliocentric or do you mean flat Earth or round?
So the Earth is not flat. I know that you've heard of flat Earth, right? So flat Earth is a psyop, and I'm gonna tell you why. The number one proof that debunks the globe, again, is the upwards push of the Earth. Most of flat earthers online claim the Earth is motionless. So they deny the upwards, they deny the normal force of the Earth. So they're complete denial. They completely deny that matter requires a force to move. So motionless flat earthers, the mainstream flat Earth, is just a psyop there to make the whole subject look stupid. So they're claiming magical forces can move objects, and it's just they're just talking about like Narnia physics, Harry Potter physics. It's not real physics either. So globe Earth versus flat Earth is a false dichotomy. So the reality is the Earth is a level plane, and it's level because it has orientation, and it has orientation because it has motion. Because in order for something to have orientation, it requires a force or motion, and that's what gives us our vertical, and that's how we get level from the vertical. So you require a force, you require motion. So the Earth is pushing up on us right now. And again, these flat earthers are far gone. They completely deny that. I get more hate from flat earthers than globe earthers, believe it or not. That's how controlled this subject is. So yeah, it's pretty huge, man. So what would stop you from looking into this subject further, or would you even look into this more, or what do you think?
Yeah, probably. I would look into it.
Yeah, if we're being lied to about the shape of the Earth, what other lie? What else is there? That's bigger than that lie. I couldn't think of anything that's a bigger lie than that, in my opinion. But so, do you have any questions again for me before you go? Or?
Yeah. Wait. So yeah, my bad.
Yeah. No worries.
So you're saying heliocentric model. So you think that the Earth is in the center?
It's geocentric, but the lights in the sky, they're not other Earth-like planets or anything like that. In my opinion, they're just lights that are part of the creation. I don't know exactly, what they're there for. Maybe, they're there to navigate, so we can navigate the Earth without using any other, I don't know. I don't know what they are exactly, but yeah, in my opinion, the Earth is geocentric, and it's the only place of existence as far as I know.
Universally speaking, it is geocentric because from our point of like, what do they call it? From our origin point,
Yeah.
Okay, the Earth is geocentric universally because we're on the center. Whenever you look somewhere, everything is what's called. We're looking in that direction.
Sure. So you could say it's relative. Yeah. Relative to us, we're the center. So you could say that about any other point in space, right? Relative to that person, they're in the center. You know, but in reality, that idea you're thinking about is that there's a bunch of different bodies in space, and we're here. But the reality is, we're the only body in space. We have not discovered something external. We haven't even been outside of the Earth, put it that way. So in my opinion, the Earth is a contained system, physically contained, and the highest we've ever gone is like 30 miles up. So NASA claiming that they go thousands and thousands and millions of miles up in the sky, that's all lies. You want to know how I know we can go higher than like 25 miles?
Yeah.
Do you know how aircraft and helicopters fly? They're required to push off of the air, right, to be able to gain lift. The air has to be at a certain density to be able to push off of it. The higher you elevate, the less dense the air becomes, so you're not able to push off of it anymore, and you won't be able to gain lift. So about 20 to 25 miles, the air becomes so thin, I guess you could say, where aircraft cannot fly higher anymore. So if it is physically impossible to go beyond like 50 miles up. They claim to do so, but again, it's just pseudoscience. You know, all that cannot be explained physically. Yes.
But like, what about the engine on the bottom? Because those have an internal
combustion. Yes, but the combustion, like the gas pushing out, has to push off of something else to be able to move forward. So you need a medium to be able to push off of to move forward.
Could it push off the rocket?
No, because the rocket's in front of it, and then the combustion's coming out this way.
Because like what's it called? It's like a two funnel shape.
Right. I've heard of the explanation. Yeah, but if you put a rocket or anything that has propulsion inside of a vacuum and you turn it on, it will not move. You know, like if you have a drone, right? It pushes off of the air to gain lift. If you put a square, suck the air out of the cube, create a vacuum, put the drone in there and try to fly it, it won't fly because it requires the air to push off of it. You know, same thing with rockets. You know, that's why space travel is a physical impossibility, because they're claiming space is like a near perfect vacuum, but yet rockets are still able to push off of nothing to be able to move. That doesn't make any sense. But again, all of those are just stories to back up the globe Earth model. You know, we're jumping ahead to Harry Potter physics that we can't prove here on Earth. That we just have to believe. Again, that's why it's just a religion. You know, everything that they're showing us, everything that they're telling us cannot be verified here on Earth. What can be verified actually contradicts what they're telling us, which is ironic. You know, so what physics does show debunks the globe Earth. For example, the physics of water when contained at rest. For example, the normal force of the Earth pushing, you know, the air being pushed up to be able to push up helium. You know, all of that is a physical impossibility from a globe Earth. You know, so yeah, that's why I'm out here, because this is the number one censored subject on Earth by far. By far, this is the number one censored topic. I've been across this subject 10 years already, and I hate to say it hasn't really moved much forward, other than these flat earthers that are controlled opposition and just spreading a bunch of misinformation and just keeping this whole subject down. Other than that, it hasn't really moved much forward than that. That's how censored it is. You know, and I've spoken to physics professors, teachers. Nobody can prove the globe. It's just a belief that everyone has. You know?
What did the professor say about it?
He just basically said, "Oh, do you have any data to back up all this up?" And then I showed him the curvature of the Earth, the numbers with the Pythagorean theorem and the radius. And after that, he just kind of like didn't even know what to say. He just walked away. But yeah, he asked for numbers and data. I gave him numbers and data, and he still walked away. So no, yeah, I'm telling you, this is by far the biggest lie on Earth that I could even in history throughout, you know, ever. I haven't came across a bigger lie than this. You know, it's literally the nature of our existence. You know.
Not bad. I'm just thinking right now.
Yeah, go for it.
So how come like you're on a plane?
Yes.
You can go both directions.
Yes.
However, one direction takes less time than the other direction.
Oh, it doesn't. You're talking about like when you fly from here to New York and from New York to LA?
No, I'm talking about like say you're over here, right? Say you're over here.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to go this way. We can go down and then over, and that takes less time than over here. Like.
Oh, you're talking about like on a globe, for example. You think you could go around and get to a place shorter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I don't like to show what the Earth looks like because nobody knows what the Earth looks like. But let's say that all the continents of the globe were true, and the size. If we were just to flatten out a globe, this is what it would look like, right? So a lot of people would say, well, I can go from Australia to Africa, right, or whatever. On a globe, it'll be short distance. But when you start looking into it, there's a lot of inconsistencies from airplane flights. So there's no such thing as a flight from like Australia, for example.
They go over the north,
Yeah, they go through the north because they're cutting like this. You know what I'm saying? They say that they have to go up to get fuel and then come back down. But in reality, they're just doing a straight line like this. But on a globe Earth model, it looks like they're going up and then they're going back down. But in reality, they're just doing a straight line. Because, you know what I'm saying? So again, flight paths and distances to flight paths are inconsistent as well because nobody knows the exact layout of the Earth. I would say there's more continents too, and the continents are probably different sizes too. I don't know if you knew, all the maps that they show us, like in schools, they're all inaccurate. There is no 100% accurate map of the Earth. So that's why I don't take any maps as proof of anything.
Like even this one.
Even this one's wrong. I would say this one's 100% wrong. But this is just what it would look like if the globe was flattened out. You know, like opened up. And this is what it would look like. So Antarctica wouldn't be an ice continent in the bottom. It would just be a ring around the Earth holding all the water in. Because Antarctica is allegedly the highest elevation on Earth.
I thought that was,
It's over 2,000 feet of elevation, no more. This is the highest continent, because obviously Mount Everest is way higher, but it's the highest continent on Earth, the highest elevation. So it would make sense that that's kind of containing the water in, kind of like a container, like I said. It's, you know, it would make sense. But again, I still don't buy this map. You know, I wouldn't buy any map because nobody knows what the dimensions of the Earth actually are.
What do you hypothesize would be on the other side of Earth?
The underneath?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has the thing, we're being physically contained by a physical barrier. So people might say it's like a dome, right? Because in order to maintain air pressure, which we do have here on Earth, you require a physical containment. Otherwise, the air would just rush into an empty space. So you won't be able to create pressure. The fact that we have 14.7 psi here at sea level shows that the air is being maintained. 14.7 psi, allegedly. You know, I don't know how they measure that, but you know. But point being is, yeah, so we can't go underneath the Earth because we can't exit the Earth. The Earth is a contained system, in my opinion.
Why not underneath?
Oh, the deepest we've ever drilled is 8 miles.
Yeah.
So what if the Earth was 50 miles thick? Then we'll never get to deal through
Given
it.
time.
Yeah. But what if it was 1,000 miles deep?
Given time.
That's the thing. I don't think we could come up with like technology or equipment to be able to drill that deep because it just becomes too dense and too hot that every engine just overheats. So that's why they stopped drilling after 8 miles, is because machines couldn't keep up, you know, with the pressure. I'm sorry?
Why did they get hot?
Because of how hard, dense the Earth becomes, the deeper you go. So you need obviously a stronger engine, more torque, and obviously engines can't keep up. You know, eventually they overheat. You know, even the biggest engines we built can penetrate. You know, so it could be impenetrable. You know, well, at least to our knowledge, in our technology. You know, but yeah, anything well, what's outside of the Earth, again, it's all nobody knows what's outside of the Earth. You know, I don't know what's outside of the Earth for sure. I like to think that whatever created this place, whatever beings created this place, probably exists outside of it. I don't know. For sure, it's not outer space and an empty void and all that, and everything came from nothing. That story I do not buy. You know? So yeah. I mean, any other questions about this subject? Have you ever came across another flat earther? I guess I would say, or another person that doesn't believe the Earth is a globe.
No.
Just online?
Online,
yeah. And that's why I'm out here, because online is just so censored, it's so controlled, so many sock puppet accounts, so many bullshit, that I just have to come out here and speak to real people and present the facts as is, you know, because online is not going to go nowhere. You know, with all the censoring and all the bullshit, you know, it's just, it does suck, but, you know, it is what it is, so. No, man, I appreciate the chat. Look, here's my channel. The 6 top proofs are in here that debunk the globe. You could take this with you. And yeah, I come out and do this, you know, once or twice a month. And yeah, you could check me out. Yeah, I appreciate the chat, man.
You too.
Yeah, take care. Yeah. What's up, man?
What's up?
You want to give this a shot?
I'm about to lose, but let's do it.
Nah, you'll get it. Pretty easy. So 2 very
We on
easy.
YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
Hell yeah.
YouTube Live. All right, so 3 box trucks here. They're completely sealed. They're all on a level surface, and they all have an apple hanging from a string. The only difference between these 3 box trucks is that one is at rest, one is accelerating forward, and one is accelerating in reverse. So out of these 3, which one is at rest?
D.
Okay, and what would you say B?
Apples are moving.
Okay, perfect. You got it. Which one's accelerating forward?
A.
How do you know A is accelerating forward?
Is law of physics.
Okay, yeah.
When you moves forward, there's nothing pushing this forward. It's gonna stay in its inertial position, which pushes back.
Yes, yeah. So due to inertia,
Yeah.
it just remains still in its position. Yes, yes. You got it. Perfect, perfect. So you got the first one. So the second one, pretty similar, but instead of an apple is a helium balloon. So out of these 3, which one is at rest?
B.
Okay, yeah, and it's for the exact same reason as the first. Which one's accelerating forward?
Still thinking.
A? Okay, so this one's actually C.
Is it C?
Yes, it is C. So there is 2 reasons why it's C. So the first reason is helium is less dense than air.
Gotcha.
Right, that's the first reason. The second reason is a force. So when I apply the force in this direction, again, all the air that's inside of the truck is also being pushed in that same direction through
Right.
space. And because air is more dense than helium, is able to push it in the same direction as the force.
Gotcha.
So that would be called what a buoyant effect is. It's when something is less dense than the medium that surrounds it and it gets pushed in a particular direction. So again, and look, I recreated this experiment in a cargo van with a helium balloon and an apple. So based on the principles, did I accelerate to the right or did I accelerate to the left here?
Makes sense. Based off of those principles, trucks going forward.
Yes, it's going this way. Again, because the air is being
Right,
pushed
yeah,
in
makes
that
sense.
direction, and then the air is able to push the helium.
Right.
Again, the air is not dense enough to push the apple, so the apple just stays still.
Makes sense.
Because the air cannot push it, like it does the helium. So here, I can demonstrate that here, that buoyant effect. This is a buoyant object, so the water is more dense than the ball.
Right.
So if I apply a force in this direction, what direction?
gonna go down.
Yes. Yep, it goes forward. Exactly. So that's what buoyancy is. Yeah, yeah. One last question before you go. If I have a helium balloon here on Earth, right, and I release it, what direction does it go? Yes. So in this scenario, the truck generated the force, again, to be able to push the helium, the air to be able to push the helium balloon. What's generating the force here on Earth to be able to push up the air to be able to push up the helium?
Gravity.
Gravity. But you believe gravity is a pulling force, right?
Yeah.
So the air is being pulled down,
Right.
but how is the helium going the opposite direction the air is being moved? Because again, the helium balloon will move in the same direction the air is being pushed.
Right.
That's reality. That's physics with any states of matter. So the fact is, it is gravity, but the gravity of the Earth is a pushing force, not a pulling force.
Right.
So the Earth right now is not pulling you towards it; it's pushing up against you. And that motion up, it's what's pushing up the air as well, and that's how air is able to push up helium. Because it's a chain reaction of a force.
Right.
So the air pushing up on you, again, is pushing up the air and it's pushing up the helium. So again, the Earth is not pulling you down. The Earth is literally moving up and pushing up against us. So that's what gravity is. It's a push of the Earth, not a pull. So here, this is the real reason why I'm doing this. You believe the Earth is a ball, right? You understand that on a ball, up is relative. In other words, if you're standing here, up is this way for you, but if you're standing down here, up is this way for you.
Right.
But if you're standing here, up is that way.
Right.
So in every direction away from the center is
Right.
up on a ball.
Right.
If we could prove that the Earth is not pulling you down, but is actually pushing you up,
Right.
how can the Earth push up in every direction at the same time if it was a ball?
It's cool.
Because of its core? Explain to me, please.
So the course asks if there's enough mass versus gravitation.
That's a pull, but I'm talking about a push. How can the Earth push up in every direction if it was a ball? So for example, what I'm saying is that when you release this object, everybody believes that gravity pulled it down towards the Earth, right?
Right.
That's what everybody believes. What I'm showing here is that it's the other way around. Everything's being pushed up right now as we're speaking. So when I release something that's not connected to the Earth, for example, and it's just in free fall, this doesn't accelerate down to the Earth. It's the Earth that's moving up to meet it. So this simply gets left behind and the Earth is catching up to meet it. So the Earth, this never moves down, it's the Earth that's moving up. So my thing is that if you believe the Earth is a ball, and we could prove that the Earth is moving up because buoyancy shows us that there's an upwards push, that would mean the Earth will have to be expanding in order for it to be a ball. So in order for people to believe the Earth is a ball, they have to believe in gravity being a pulling force. Because if you could prove that gravity is a pushing force, then that wouldn't work from a globe Earth. That would just explode. You know, it wouldn't work. So that would be the number one proof to debunk the globe Earth, is the fact that gravity is a pushing force of the Earth, not a pulling force. So here's what it is. So the Earth is just an extended level plane that's pushing up in one direction. So everybody's up is the same. So nobody's upside down relative to us. Everybody's on the same level, and everybody's just moving up in one direction. So the Earth is just moving up in one direction. It can't move up 360 degrees at the same time. That doesn't make any sense, right? So that would be the number one proof to debunk the globe. So if I was to ask you respectfully, why do you believe the Earth is a ball?
I mean, this makes sense.
What about the globe Earth makes sense?
It's what we've been taught.
So it's just, would you say it's just based on faith then? It's just what you were told?
I mean, yeah, pictures from space.
Okay, so if I showed you a picture of me flying, would you believe I could fly?
Depends.
Would you believe I could walk on water if I showed you a video of me walking on water?
To see it.
Yeah. I would say that's a physical impossibility, because I've seen magicians do that, but automatically I know it's a trick. So I'm just trying to figure out how they're doing it, because that's a physical impossibility to be able to walk on water, right? So if you show me a video, it doesn't matter. I'm going to assume automatically that it's bullshit and it's some kind of trick, because that defies physics. So if you're trying to show me something that's real, that defies physics, I know it's not real. I know you're just trying to lie to me, right? So again, when they're showing us images of the globe Earth that defy physics, I use the same logic. You know, that defies physics, that image has to be fake. Unless you could show me in reality, you know, that there is curvature of the Earth, then obviously I'm not going to accept that. You know, so again, do you know the radius of the Earth that they tell us by any chance? Nah. So there is experiments that show that there is no curvature to the Earth, and basically proves that there is no curvature as well. I'll just show you real quick. So they do tell us the radius of the Earth, again, is 3,909 miles. So we could calculate for how much curvature there should be, right, every mile. So there should be 8 inches in the first mile, 32 inches in the second mile, and 6 feet of curvature in the third mile. So if we went out to a giant lake to physically measure for this curvature, like a lake that was 3 miles across, for example, when the water's filled up and at rest, if we build a level structure over that body of water, the surface of the water is going to be parallel to anything horizontal above it, because that's what water does when it's contained at rest. The surface always equalizes, right? They're trying to tell us that every lake on Earth is bending 8 inches per mile squared, which is 6 feet in 3 miles, which is a physical impossibility for water to do this on the surface. So every lake on Earth, they're trying to tell us that this is what lakes are doing, but in reality, this is what lakes do. So a physical measurement of the Earth will show that there is no curvature, regardless of distance. You know, so the oceans are not bending; the oceans are level. Sea level, the term sea level comes from oceans being horizontal. You know, so again, physics shows that the globe Earth is impossible. You know, only stories and videos and images show that it's a globe, but all of that is just CGI cartoons and just stories that are not backed up by physics. You know. So again, this is the number one censored subject on Earth by far. It's the fact that we don't live on a globe Earth, you know. So that's why I'm out here, you know, speaking to real people, because this, again, online, my channel is super censored. You know, there's just so much bullshit, so many controlled opposition, like all these motionless flat earthers. You've heard of flat Earth before, right? Over 99% of flat earthers online, especially content creators, are all controlled opposition. So that means that they're basically globe earthers in disguise. They're just trying to make the flat Earth topic look stupid. Because again, the Earth is not flat and motionless. It's level and it's pushing up. It's literally moving up through space right now. And flat earthers will deny that. And again, they're just trying to muddy the waters. They're just trying to make this look stupid. You know, but I hate to say it, it's kind of working. You know, a lot of people stay away from this subject, and it's because they hear flat earthers say a bunch of stupid shit, and then it's just a turn off. You know, and that's the whole point, is to turn people off to the subject before they look into it. Because once you look into it with real practical stuff like this, then the globe Earth just falls apart. So do you have any questions before you go? No? So here's my channel. I go to other universities. I go to UCLA, USC, UC Irvine, and I come here a lot as well to have conversations with the students about this. So you can check it out. You can take that with you. Yeah, appreciate the chat, man. Yeah, take care, man. You guys want to give it a shot? Yeah, you guys can do it together. Cool, cool. So it's 2 very easy multiple choice questions. So this is the first one. So I have 3 box trucks and they're completely sealed. They're all on a level surface and they all have an apple hanging from a string. The only difference between these three is that one is at rest, one is accelerating forward, and one is accelerating in reverse. So out of these three, which one is at rest?
B?
Sure. Would you say B2? Or?
What was the third thing? They're accelerating where?
So one is at rest, one is accelerating forward, and one is accelerating in reverse. So
So decelerate? Or,
no,
so they're slowing down?
not slowing down. So one is at rest.
It's
Yeah, one is
slowing-
reversing
okay.
and one is accelerating forward.
Okay.
So which one's at rest? Which one's not moving?
B.
B.
Okay, how did you guys know it's B?
Because the apple's moving.
Is it moving? Okay, yeah, pretty simple. Which one's accelerating forward?
This one. B.
Hey.
Okay, how did you guys know it's A?
Because it's going forward, so it has to go back.
Okay, sure.
from
So
straight.
due to inertia, it just remains motionless, you could say, and the container is moving.
Yeah.
So it just gets left behind pretty much due to
Yeah.
inertia. So yeah.
Or
this is-
it could also. Yeah, it's probably A.
Yeah, it is A. And then obviously this will be reversing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, right? Perfect, you guys got it. So the second one, pretty similar, but instead of an apple, is a helium balloon inside. So out of these three, which one is at rest?
Still B.
Still B.
Yes, and it's for the same reason as the first,
Yep.
because it's not moving. Which one's accelerating forward?
Still A.
A. Actually, this one is C. And there's two reasons why it's C. So the first reason is air is more dense than helium, right? So the second reason is a force. So as soon as I apply a force, for example, in this direction, accelerate forward, all of the air that's inside of the truck is also being forced in that direction through space. And because air is more dense than helium, is able to push the helium along with it. Does that make sense? Air wasn't dense enough to push the apple, obviously because apple is more dense than
Yeah.
air. So the air wasn't able to push it along with it, so it got left behind due to inertia. This, however, the helium is less dense than the air, so it is able to push it with it.
Okay.
So yeah, so like a helium balloon gets pushed by the air because the air is also being pushed.
Yeah.
So that's what buoyancy is a chain reaction of a force. So here, I recreated this experiment inside of a cargo van with a helium balloon and an apple. Look at that. So what direction
What
would you
the heck?
what direction would you say I accelerated this? To the
Forward.
right? Yes, exactly. Because again, matter doesn't lie. You know, if I was to tell you I accelerated in reverse, obviously I'm bullshitting. You know, I would be lying at that point. Yeah. And again, videos can be manipulated and obviously, you know, changed. So I have this experiment here in real life. So this is a buoyant object, right? The water around it is more dense than the ball. So if I would apply a force in this direction, what
It'll go
direction?
in that direction.
Yes. See? So that's physics, that's
That's
reality.
crazy.
So buoyancy always follows the direction of the force. So one last question before you guys go. If I have a helium balloon here on Earth, right? Because helium is buoyant. If I let it go, what direction does it go?
The way that the Earth's rotating?
Like this right now. There's up, down, left, right. If
Oh,
I have a helium balloon, what direction does it go?
Up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is two reasons why the helium balloon rises. So why do you think it rises?
Lighter than air?
That's the first reason. What's the second reason?
Lighter than air. It's not heavy enough for gravity to affect it.
Close. So the second reason is a force. So it has to do with gravity. So again, in this scenario, the truck generated the force to be able to push the air, and then the air was able to push the helium, right? What do you think is generating the force here on Earth to be able to push up the air, to be able to push up the helium?
The rotation.
Okay, you said the rotation. In fact, is actually the upwards push of the Earth. Have you guys heard of the normal force of the Earth?
Yeah, not the normal force of the Earth.
No, so the normal force of the Earth, you can look it up, it's a real force, and it's an upwards push of the Earth. So I know you guys heard of gravity obviously being a pulling force, right? I don't know if you guys knew a pulling force of gravity is just a theory. So it has never been physically measured or detected. So when you release an object into free fall, everybody believes that there was a force that pulled it down, right, to the Earth. In reality, what happens is when I release this into free fall, it's the Earth that's coming up to meet it. So we're being pushed up right now by the Earth. We're not being pulled down to the Earth.
Oh,
so that's what we're
it's
stuck.
It's not moving in a straight line around the thing. It's going in a orbit.
So no. So the Earth, relative to us right now,
Uh-huh.
is pushing up against you right now, and that's why we're stuck to the Earth, because the Earth is pushing up against us. It's not pulling us down towards it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's why we're stuck to the Earth, is because the Earth is pushing up. So that's the real force of the Earth. It's a push of the Earth, not a pulling force. So again, gravity is just a theory, again, to explain that why objects accelerate down, but in reality they don't, right? So here's a real reason why I'm doing this. You guys believe the Earth is a ball, right? Do you guys understand that on a ball, up is relative? So if you're standing here, up is this way, but if you're standing down here, up is in the opposite direction, right? And if you're standing here, up will be that way, right? So in every direction away from the center will be up on a ball, right? If we could prove that gravity is a push of the Earth and not a pull. In other words, the Earth is moving up, pushing up against you and not pulling you down. And buoyancy shows us that. If we could prove that, how can the Earth move up, in other words, push up in every direction at the same time if it was a ball?
It wouldn't, because it'd be like falling apart.
Yeah, it would explode. It would expand and explode. So in other words, in order for people to believe in the ball Earth theory, they first have to believe in the theory of gravity being a pulling force. Because if we could prove that it's the other way around and it's a pushing force of the Earth, then the whole globe Earth model falls apart. It wouldn't even work on paper. Because again, it would just expand and explode. It wouldn't work. So the reality is the Earth is just an extended level plane and it's just pushing up in one direction. So everybody's up is the same. It's not relative. So China and Australia are just across the way. They're not underneath us. So the Earth is just a level plane that's moving up in one direction. So that would be the number one proof to debunk the globe Earth, is the fact that gravity is a push of the Earth, not a pull. So that would be the number one proof. So if I was to ask you guys respectfully, why do you guys believe the Earth is a ball?
Shots from space.
Okay, images from outer space. What else?
Stuff like if you're looking off in the distance, you know, you have a light through a hole, you can't see that light. There's a horizon.
So you're talking about like a laser experiment over a
Yeah,
distance,
yeah,
shows that
there's
there's
a horizon.
curvature.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk about that first and then I'll talk about the images. So laser experiments, there's a reason why those are being pushed in the mainstream to prove the globe, right? What happens if I shine a laser through water? Will that laser go straight?
It'll diffract.
Yes, so it won't go straight, obviously, because of refraction. The atmosphere is basically moisture. So if you shine a laser through the atmosphere, guess what you're gonna have? Refraction. So you're gonna always have an inconclusive test. But there is a very simple test we can actually do to measure to see if there's curvature, and I'll show you. First, do you guys know the radius of the Earth that they tell us?
I don't know.
Okay, it's pretty simple. You guys can look this up. I'm not making it up. So it's 3,959 miles. That's the radius of the Earth, allegedly. Again, they claim to have satellites orbiting the Earth, so they need to know the radius of orbit if they're supposedly going around it. So they do tell us the radius. So based on the radius, we can calculate for the circumference, which is 24,901 miles, allegedly. But using a simple calculation like the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, we can literally use this calculation to calculate for how much curvature there should be every mile. And it turns out that there should be 8 inches per mile square of curvature. That means in the first mile is an 8-inch drop, second mile 32 inches, and by the third mile it should be 6 feet of measurable curvature, right? So how do we measure for that curve, right? It's very easy. So if we went to a giant lake that was 3 miles across, for example, and it was filled with water, if we build a level structure above it, like a horizontal structure above a body of water in 3 miles, the water is going to show that it's going to be parallel to, you know, anything horizontal above it, because the physics of water when contained and at rest shows that the surface always equalizes. It always forms a horizontal surface, which is level. That's where we get the term sea level, right? They're trying to tell us that the surface of a lake is bending 6 feet in 3 miles. So they're trying to tell us that if you went to a lake that was 3 miles across, that there's going to be a 6-foot deviation from the starting point and the end point of 6 feet, which is a physical impossibility for water to be able to do that. Water doesn't have the ability to support a shape on the surface. It always takes the shape of the container, but the surface always equalizes and forms a horizontal. So they're trying to tell us that this is what physics is, but in reality, this is what physics is. So the physics of water shows that the globe Earth, you know, is a physical impossibility. So this will be the number 2 proof to debunk the globe, a physical measurement of the Earth, literal physical measurement. Because laser experiments are again, they're going to get inconclusive answers. And that's why those experiments are being pushed. Because you're not going to get an answer from it. A physical, literal measurement like this will show there is no curvature to the Earth. You know, and water doesn't have the ability to bend. Now, you were talking about images, right? Images from outer space. So if I show you guys an image or even a video of me walking on water, would you guys believe I could do that? Why wouldn't you believe me?
You're denser than water.
It defies physics, right? So if a magician did that, I know automatically is a trick. So I'm going to figure out how he did it, not the fact that he could do that. Because that defies physics, right? Even walking through walls, for example. If I showed you a video of me walking through walls, obviously you know it's a trick. Like a magician's trick, right? That defies physics. The globe Earth images and videos defy physics as well. Water doesn't have the ability to bend around and stick to a ball. Especially if the Earth is pushing up. That wouldn't make sense from a globe. How can the Earth push up if it's a globe? It can't. You know? So again, these are the 2 proofs that debunk the globe Earth without a shadow of a doubt. It's the physics of water, because the Earth is covered in water, the oceans, and they show that they're level. And the fact that gravity is, again, is a push and not a pull also debunks it. So So again, obviously images shouldn't be trusted, especially if those images defy physics. And here's another thing. NASA admits they don't have real images of the Earth. They openly admit they're composites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how ironic, right? They say that they do that because they can't go high enough to take a picture of the whole thing. So they just literally make it in Photoshop. But then that contradicts the fact that they went to the moon in 1972 and all that. Obviously, that was all made in a studio. If you look at the footage from the moon landing, it's laughable. You know, it's pretty pathetic. Like the moon landing footage. You know, is there anything else that convinces you that it's a globe Earth, or are you guys open to the idea that maybe we have been lied to?
Maybe.
When we have telescopes, we see that the planets are circular. in
Okay,
shape.
sure. So telescopes from NASA, obviously, again, they show us CGI, but if you have like a very powerful zoom camera, optical zoom, you can zoom into the stars. So these are what the stars actually look like when you zoom into them. So nobody knows what they actually are, you know, but the fact that you're able to zoom into them like this and they look like they're rippling in water and change colors, you know, that shows me that obviously they're not far away and they're not terra firma. They're not other Earth-like planets. And this is what the planets look like. So this is what NASA shows us Mars looks like, but this is in reality what it looks like. So it's no different than what the stars look like. They just have their own unique paths. The only difference between planets and stars is that planets have their own unique paths. All these other stars are fixed. You know, they're constant. That's why they're constellations. But nobody knows what the lights in the skies actually are and where they're, you know, how they're being illuminated, I guess you could say. But to claim that these are Earth-like planets and that proves Earth is a globe, that's a red herring. That's completely irrelevant. Looking at the sky tells us nothing about the ground we're looking at. You just have to make assumptions. So an assumption is not scientific, obviously. You know, a scientific experiment will be a physical measurement.
A lot of science is based off of assumptions. Like
then that's not science, I would say.
No, it's because they have to make an assumption and then work back from it to get their answers. That's usually how like things are progressed.
Yeah, I get that. So you could have a theory that's based on practical physics, for example, and you can build a theory off of that, and then you'll come to the conclusion that if that theory was true, you know, obviously it'll be shown to be true. But if there's something else that contradicts your theory, then you'll be able to catch that. You know, because again, if something is a theory, it hasn't been proven. You know, in other words, it's still up for investigation. The fact that the physics of water when contained in a rest shows a level surface, that's not a theory. That's physics that directly contradicts the globe Earth. Now, looking at the sky and pointing at the stars as some kind of proof for the globe, again, it's just a red herring. It's a false argument. So again, the stars have nothing to do with the dimensions of the Earth or the ground we stand on. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a scapegoat type of thing that people try to do, you know, type of thing. But you know, I get it, you know. That's what we've been told and shown, you know. Have you guys heard of Euclidean plane geometry or Euclidean geometry?
I don't know what it means, but I've heard
So it means, so all the blueprints and construction that we do here on Earth, so when we lay down railroads or build tunnels, for example, they're all, the engineers use Euclidean plane geometry, which is planar geometry, which means everything is built on a horizontal surface. So nobody takes the curvature of the Earth in account when building bridges or anything on Earth. Nobody takes account of the Earth's curve. So all the blueprints, everything shows plumbs and levels. So verticals and horizontal lines, regardless of distance. So here's another thing. In engineering, all plumb lines are considered parallel to each other. You know what a plumb line is?
No.
A plumb line is a true vertical. So if you have a string and you tie a weight to it, that gives you true vertical, right? That's a plumb line. So in engineering, all plumb lines, regardless of distance from each other, are considered parallel. You know what parallel means, right? So on a globe Earth, plumb lines are not parallel because all plumb lines should converge to a center point, right? Because they're claiming the surface is not horizontal, it's curving. So plumb lines converge on a globe Earth, but in reality, they don't converge. All plumb lines stay parallel because we live on a level. We live on a horizontal surface. So if you're standing here with a plumb line and you're standing here with a plumb line, your plumb lines are parallel, right? On a globe Earth, if you're standing here with a plumb line, but if you're standing here with a plumb line, those two plumb lines are 45 degrees from each other or 90 degrees from each other. So that defies physics. Nobody's ever measured or observed that. You know, everything practical here on Earth shows that the Earth is a level plane that's pushing up, not pulling, not a globe that's pulling you down. So they just inverted the physics with the globe Earth. That's all they did. Instead of us being pulled down, again, it's the Earth pushing us. And that's why we're stuck to the Earth. Yeah. You guys have any other questions for me about this subject?
No.
So before you guys go, I know you guys heard of flat Earth, right? So I'm going to give you guys a huge tip. So over 99% of flat earthers, especially online on YouTube, content creators, are all bullshitters. And the reason why is because they deny the upwards push of the earth. So all of these flat earthers online, they're all motionless flat earthers. So they completely deny the normal force of the earth, which debunks gravity. They're actually defending gravity, in other words. Ironically, they come up with their own explanations to how gravity, they don't call it gravity, they call it other things that accelerates matter down. You know, everybody believes this goes down. But in reality, it's just being left behind, and the earth is just catching up. So the earth is the container, we're inside of it. So just like with the truck, the apple gets left behind, and then the back of the truck hits it. If you were to turn this vertically, it's exactly what the earth is doing. So the earth is moving up, and this is like the apple, it's just being left behind due to inertia. So this doesn't have a force acting on it, accelerating it down. It's just inertia resisting the upwards push because the air's not dense enough to push it. Because as soon as I let it go, the air's trying to push it up, but obviously the air's not dense enough. Like a helium balloon, on the other hand, you release it, and it is able to push it up. Because that shows you that air is being pushed up as well. You know. So again, there's no denying that. So I kind of got through this whole thing with them. Here, I'll give.
I've got to go eat.
Yeah, no worries, man. You guys take care. Yeah. Here, take this. You guys can check it out. Yeah, you guys can share it. Yeah. All right.